Greetings from the road. This is Freighter Jim. Today I have an exclusive for you. That's the RMS Titanic being escorted out into open waters. I'm here with Greg Grams, patriarch of the Grams family that owns and operates the Volo Museum. And it's located about 50 miles from Chicago. This is their latest exhibit, due to be opening around Thanksgiving of 2021. This is the Titanic exhibit. And what makes this exhibit unique in the world is that the centerpiece of the exhibit will be the Renault vehicle, one of only two in the world. The other one being in the cargo hold of the Titanic, listed on the ship's manifest that went down when the Titanic sank and is still on board. The second one, Mr. Grams acquired earlier this year and based the Titanic exhibit around. It is the finest artifact, in my opinion, that was not on the ship when it went down, but is actually associated with the Titanic. The vehicle here, since 2000, has had two extensive restorations, the second of which was focused on restoring the car exactly to be a duplicate of the car that went down on the Titanic. And they did that using very exacting records furnished by Lloyd's of London, which had insured the car for $5,000 and paid the policy to the owner, who was 36 years old, I believe, and a coal dealer from Pennsylvania who survived the sinking with his family. So Greg here has been gracious enough to me to allow access to show you one of the exhibits here. I can't show you the car at all, but I'm going to show you an exhibit from the movie Titanic, which depicts the car. But because of the rarity of this car, they don't want any advanced photographs or videos of the car itself. You'll have to pay admission to come here and see it. What you see here is a recreation of the Captain's Bridge. Greg's going to show you what we're looking at here. I'll start by showing you, this is a black and white photograph of the captain of the Titanic. And again, this is still being worked on. This is a dynamic display, still being worked on. So Greg, tell me, what are you standing in front of there? What do you have your hands on?
The ship's binnacle is basically the, to tell what direction you're going. The ship's wheel, the captain would have been here. And again, it's got the compass inside, basically. And these walls, I have to read up more on them. It has something to do with the balance of it, but these have a lot to do. You have to look into here and see the compass.
Okay, so that was actually the steering for the ship, and those two balls, the two balls would control the list of the ship from one side to the other. And you use that to keep the ship centered as it went through the water.
Yeah, I don't know. I gotta, again, this display, we still have a lot to do to it. These are what I found interesting, but I had enough to read about all the rest of this stuff because I'm just learning.
Can you demonstrate, and of course, folks, this isn't bolted to the floor, but what you just laid your hands on there, you just showed me how to operate. This was how they communicated to the engine room, right? From the Captain's Bridge.
A telegraph handler. They didn't have intercoms or cell phones back in 1912 or 14. So what they did, like if they wanted to slow down, they would take this, and now it's on slow. Well, that same message would light up in the engine room.
And tell them to increase or decrease.
And that person would tell the other person.
Okay.
It was a chain of command, so by the time it slowed down was, a little bit later. But that's what this is for. And there was then one for every engine. The Titanic actually would have had three of these. Three of these,
because there were three main engines.
Three engines, three else.
Okay, and this is a representation of what they might see out the bow. Is the bow the front of the ship or the stern? The bow's the front, right? So out of the bow, they would see the night sky.
Yeah.
Okay, folks, Greg's been very kind to share his time. I'm the only person able to do this, and I'm just really lucky. I'm fortunate. I think Greg and I had talked, and it's a chicken and the egg thing, but I think I determined the chicken in developing this 40th exhibit. Greg had an opportunity to buy this car earlier this year. And based on that, the idea was created to do a Titanic exhibit. And again, the only Titanic exhibit in the world that actually has the only other remaining Renault that you see. This is just a plywood mock-up from the Titanic movie, and it was on a Model T chassis, but the only other actual car is going to be on display for the public in the Titanic exhibit, due to open around Thanksgiving of 2022. I want to thank Greg Grams. If you have never been to the Volo Museum outside of Chicago, Illinois, you need to come. This is my favorite museum I have ever visited. This is my 4th visit. Greg is just a hell of a guy. What he does for the public, what his family does for the public, the exhibits that they have here, they're world class. I mean, you have to come and see this. If you are familiar with the movie, if you're an automobile buff, if you like Leonardo DiCaprio, Kate Winslet, James Cameron, whatever your reason, the only way that you can see this car in person is to come here. And I wish I could photograph it or video it, but I can't. Greg, is there anything else that you want people to know about this Titanic exhibit? I know you're working very hard in here, and it's a labor of love. I know you're really motivated to do this. You have a passion for this.
Well, when you're doing a Titanic, every museum would like to have a Titanic exhibit. Trouble is there's no artifacts out there. 75% of the artifacts that were off the Titanic are not. So we were very fortunate to get the main anchor, which the car was a very big deal. You remember the scene with Leonardo. And again, the one that was being used was just made out of plywood. That was made up for the movie. They made 2 of these cars, and what makes it so unusual, the car has 6 fenders. They made 2. It was a very luxury car, made in France. They built 2 of them. They were, I guess you could call them a prototype, but they were special built. And I forget his name. You remember his name that bought the car?
No, but people can look that up. The car, the last 2 acquisitions were in 2000 when a major restoration with no expense spared was done. And then 2007, 2008, another restoration was done specifically to replicate the car to the manifest instructions and the Lloyd's of London records, to duplicate down to the upholstery and down to the trim, the car that sank on the Titanic. I do know that Lloyd's paid $5,000, or that was the insurance value for the car, and it was, of course, declared a total loss. I can tell you, and this is where I believe in destiny, if you will. Last time I was here with Greg, I said, Greg, wouldn't it be a great idea if people who had personal artifacts from the Titanic that were documentable, if they loaned them to you to put on display?
Oh yeah, for the public to see.
For the public to see. And Greg's like, that ain't gonna happen. There's no artifacts left. Imagine my surprise last week when I leave Volo and I leave Greg. I'm picking up a car, I'm taking it to Boston. The gentleman that I'm taking it to, his great aunt sailed on the Titanic. She bought a Steiff puppet in the gift shop on the 3rd floor that had the barber shop. She mailed it. It's still in his family. He has that toy puppet. And he's graciously allowed Greg to exhibit it along with the family story, along with some other pieces. So the first piece that a family has agreed to loan that's documented by a passenger that survived. I looked up the woman. She made it off the Titanic on lifeboat number 5. Her story will be told here at the Volo Museum. There'll be a little display probably of it. But I encourage anyone out there, if you have any exhibits that can be documented that came from the Titanic or related to the Titanic, please contact me, message me, call me. We'll have a conversation and I'll put you in touch with Greg. It's a way for people to experience what other people experienced with their families, with maybe treasured mementos that have survived throughout the year. This would be a good place to put them on public display. So I think Greg's okay with that, right?
Oh, yeah, no,
okay.
We'd love to.
So, I manifested it and it came to be. But good things happen. This museum is spectacular. There's 39 other exhibits here. The Grams family They go to work every day to make your family have an enjoyable experience when you come through the gates. Please come and visit the Volo Museum. They're located in Volo, Illinois, about 15 miles north of Chicago. Make it a weekend trip. That's it for me, Freighter Jim. Everybody, have a great Sunday. Remember, drive safe, arrive alive. Talk to you later.